Welcome to class. I know you're expecting a class that was recorded last night, and I was too, but when I went to look at it last night, it only recorded half. So for some reason, there was a glitch. So I'm just going to give kind of a condensed form of this class, excuse me, so that you'll have an opportunity to know what was covered so that in the next class that you're attending, you will be able to know what was happening. But I just want to congratulate you for making this effort. I know it's a sacrifice to do this, and to sit and watch a video is really a sacrifice. I would encourage you to think about a parenting challenge that you might have that you hope to get answered. I had, excuse me, I'm sorry. I had the class members write down their parenting challenge to give me on a card. So if you want to write something down that you're struggling with as a parent, that you hope you can find it, if you were going to ask somebody, what should I do about this, or whatever, how can I take care of this in my family? Write that down, and by the end of these classes, hopefully you will know the answer to that, and we'll be able to figure that out. Well, to set the stage for this whole class, I just want to kind of share how I felt about parenting 41 years ago. 41 years ago, I was a young mom in my late 20s and a mother of 5 children, ages 7, 6, 4, 15 months, and newborn. Let me tell you, the children had come quickly, and as we know, parents have never been trained to be parents, and so I was at a complete loss. But I figured that it was common sense to know that if my child misbehaved, then I must perform some kind of a consequence or punishment to keep that child from doing it again, right? How'd that work for me? I had never felt so much failure and frustration in my entire life. I didn't know what to do. It didn't work. My days were filled with my yelling, go to your room, and other such things, and with my spanking and denying privileges in an attempt to control my children's behavior. I tried desperately to do that, and I realized that each time I did something, it wasn't working, but I didn't know what else to try. Very I was very upset. I didn't like myself very well. I wasn't proud of myself. I almost didn't think I liked some of my kids. It was really a frustrating place to be. I feel very fortunate at this time that Heavenly Father answered my pleas for help in the form of a friend named Deanne. Deanne was a mother of 8 children, and her youngest child was the same age as my oldest child. So she had a wealth of experience, and she was very gentle and loving and kind, and she pointed me as she tutored me on the path that I wanted to be on. In fact, she did this through a little parenting class, a little mother class that she held in her home every week. About 5 or so of us young mothers that were in the same situation gathered at Deanne's feet, at her knees, and we just asked questions and shared our frustrations and got her input. And she had so many much wise counsel for us. But most importantly, Deanne helped me to discover how to really love my children, and for this I'll be forever grateful. And Deanne was just the beginning. From there I went on to take other classes at Education Week at BYU and gathered so many materials, was asked to teach classes in our stake and in our ward. And all this helped me to pool all my resources and my research into a class format. And so that finally, into 2019, I decided to pool all this research into a book. And so I spent a year combining my things and writing it in book form. And then in 2020, I spent getting it published. And so here I am in 2021 teaching again. So what is the purpose of this class? Well, we know that there's no quick fix in parenting. I couldn't just go to Deanne's class one week and think I had it all solved. So let me just give you a couple of my favorite quotes. I just want to show you. This is President Faust. James E. Faust said, "The teaching, rearing, training of children requires more intelligence, intuitive understanding, humility, strength, wisdom, spirituality, perseverance, and hard work than any other challenge we have in life." And then listen to President Hinckley. He said, "We must work at our responsibility as parents as if everything in life counted on it, because in fact, everything in life does count on it." How does that make you feel? A little daunting? Well, that's why we are here. this class can serve you as Deanne's class served me. It's a place where you can to gather, to feel supported and strengthened, and share your frustrations, and hopefully get some feedback to help you in your parenting responsibilities. It's ideal if both parents can attend together, but that is not, we don't live in an ideal world. So that's the purpose of maybe me recording a form of this class to share with your spouse or people that can't attend the class, because this class will have a cumulative effect. It'll build on each other. So to start with, let's just kind of talk about family situations over the past decades. In the past, it was much easier to raise a successful family. Like when I was growing up, we lived in a family-friendly environment. There was media reinforcement, good examples, family-friendly laws. Raising a successful family was more a matter of just going with the flow. Today, however, the 21st century isn't that simple anymore. Life doesn't support families. It's more technological, it's faster, it's more sophisticated, it's scarier. So we see that the trends over the last 30 to 50 years have shifted from pro-family to anti-family. Let me show you this article that I kept. At one point, we were asked to teach a parenting class in the 46th ward, probably about 23 years ago in 1998. And the day before the class started, this was the Tribune, the Mesa Tribune, the front page. It said, "Ditching daddy. More single women are choosing to have children on their own." Now, today, that wouldn't even faze us. But in 1998, that's the first time I'd ever seen anything like that in print. I couldn't believe it. It's like, what? And so I took this paper to our class the next day to show that things are changing. Definitely, the trend is changing. And since the challenge has changed, we must develop a response that is equal to the challenge. It doesn't, we can have a desire to create a strong family, but that is not enough. Even good ideas are not enough. We need a new mindset, a new skill set. We don't have to learn 100 new practices and always be looking for newer and better techniques. What we need is a basic framework of fundamental principles that we can apply in any situation. Thus, the objective of this class, which I don't know if you can read up there, but it says we will learn correct principles and apply them in all family relationships. Principles are natural laws that cannot be broken, but like lighthouses, they light the way. And so I have my little lighthouse icon up here, that's going to be present in our classes to show that principles light the way for us. Focusing on principles will have a far greater effect on behavior than focusing on behavior alone. I learned that as a young mom. I was totally focused on my kids' behavior and was a disaster. So we are going to learn to focus on principles. We've all learned some principles thus far in our lives, and this class is going to teach correct principles, universal principles that you already know in your heart to be true. But you will have the opportunity in this class to decide if the practices you are currently following in your parenting align with the correct principles that we will discuss. As Joseph Smith said, I teach correct principles and they govern themselves. So the principles haven't changed. They just haven't changed. Parenthood is a puzzle. And so each week we have a blank puzzle here, but this first class is going to put the first piece of our puzzle in our parenthood, so that by the end of our class, we will have a complete family built there to help us in our parenting. So as you come to this class, I want you to do two things. The first is to understand your paradigm, your own paradigm. And the second thing is to be willing to experience the power of a paradigm shift. Now, first of all, let's make sure we understand what a paradigm is. A paradigm is the way we view our situations, ourselves, our world. It's kind of like, think of it as a map of how you interpret the world. It's your view of parenting. That's your paradigm. Our paradigms, keep in mind, whether they're correct or incorrect, they are the sources of our attitudes and behaviors, and ultimately our relationships with others. Generally, we become very emotionally and intellectually attached to our paradigms, and even though we're confronted with evidence that we might have the wrong paradigm, we stubbornly stick with it because it's so familiar and comfortable. And so that brings us to number two, is that you have to be willing to make a paradigm shift. Now, a paradigm shift is a distinctly new way of thinking about old problems. Not that the old view was wrong, but that it limited our vision. That's what happened to me in Deanne's class. I had a total paradigm shift in parenting. And it was exhilarating and it was humbling. It was exhilarating because when you have a paradigm shift, you realize how much how much you learn and how differently um, you think about something. But it's humbling because then you realize, because of that knowledge, you have to make some changes, and it's hard to change. So as we consider those two things, our paradigm and making a paradigm shift, let's consider two important elements that have a great influence over the life of a child. I don't know if you can see these up here, but the first is how parents view the nature of children and how parents view their role as a parent. These are very important. You have to know what your child, the nature of your child, and what your role is for that child. Many perspectives about the nature of children have arisen over the years in our society, and they have shaped child rearing practices for centuries. So, understanding the nature of your child and your children is critical to the study of parent-child interactions. Sorry about the phone. So, let's look at some of society's views of parenting over the years. These first three have been around for centuries, and let's just talk about what those are really quick. The first view is innately evil. Some people have thought that children are innately evil because of the fall of Adam and Eve, so that they came evil, and so consequently, they believe that children require harsh punishment to beat the devil out of them. And parents who view their children as innately evil will look for and see the worst in them, and they will see their role as engaging in any kind of behavior, however damaging, because of their sense of moral superiority to their child. Next, another view is the innately good view, that children are born innately pure with an intuitive sense of right and wrong, that good comes from them, they can do no wrong. And parents who view their child in this way may feel little need to guide and discipline them because they just feel that they're fine, they're good. And so they will see their role as accepting and embracing any behavior that arises from them, no matter what it is. Next is the blank slate view. In this perspective, this is much feel that that children don't come good or bad, they just come blank. And therefore, they're shaped totally by their experiences. And so if you're a parent that believes that, then you'll totally discount the agency of children by suggesting that the child is just a product of their environment. So you take it upon yourself. Your role is wholly responsible for the fate of that child and in shaping what that child becomes. The next two perspectives have been around since they originated probably in the 20th century. The biological perspective suggests that biological characteristics play a role in children's dispositions and temperaments. And parents who follow this perspective will see their role as insignificant because the child was just born that way. I can't do anything about it. The next perspective, constructivist, focuses on the individual's ability to interpret or even construct his environment. And parents who follow this theory believe that children have the ability to make their own choices and will apply their own interpretation to whatever they're taught. Therefore, their role to themselves is very insignificant because children are going to just construct, they're going to abandon and do what they want to do. They're going to do their own thing anyway, so why should I bother? So which view is correct? Perhaps the best answer is none of them. Maybe some of them have some element of truth, but without the knowledge that comes from God, each of these views or a combination of them falls short of the truth. Most important, none of these perspectives offers any guide for moral behavior. So they leave us with a sense of confusion about the true nature of our children and our role as a parent. So where do we find the correct map? Now, I will send you a link for a video that you can watch that explains that. And basically, we know that the correct map is, of course, found in the Restored Gospel, especially in the family, a proclamation to the world. In the proclamation, we see, I'm just going to grab some glasses and read to you exactly what the proclamation says. All human beings, male and female, are created in the image of God. Each is a beloved spirit, son or daughter of heavenly parents, and us, as such, each has a divine nature and destiny. Okay, that answers the nature. Now, how about this part? Children are an heritage of the Lord. Parents have a sacred duty to rear their children in love and righteousness, to provide for their physical and spiritual needs, and to teach them to love and serve one another, observe the commandments of God, and be law-abiding citizens wherever they live. Husbands and wives, mothers and fathers will be held accountable before God for the discharge of these obligations. Okay, so the proclamation nails these down, doesn't it? Both of those. It nails down the nature of the child and your role as a parent. Now, one of the things that I love in this video, that if you watch it, it's Elder Ballard talking about the proclamation, and he says that it was a prophetic document because it was ahead of its time. Now, if you remember, the proclamation was given in 1995 in a Relief Society meeting. And I remember sitting in that meeting, hearing that, and I'm like, well, yeah, there's nothing new here. We know all this about the family. That's right. But remember in 1998, the paper I showed you? 3 years later, here it is, ditching daddy. You can have, children on your own. Okay, so all of a sudden, you see how it was ahead of its time. It came out before the family was blatantly attacked. So now let's look at each of these, each of these perspectives in the light of the proclamation. The innately evil view is totally rejected by the restored gospel because we know that we're not innately evil. We are our nature is divine, and so because of this, harsh discipline or severe punishment is not necessary. Now, the restored gospel does teach us that we have a divine nature, and so that's true, but it also says that children are not to be left to their own devices, that we as parents are commanded to teach them, so we don't leave them on their own. They're good, but they need help. In the blank slate view, we know that environment is everything, and that's really important to us as Latter-day Saints. We want to create an environment in our home that is conducive to the Spirit, so that is important to us. However, we also know through the restored gospel that individuals have agency to choose their own destiny, and so even an ideal environment cannot guarantee that children will grow up to be steadfast and immovable in the faith. Ultimately, children are free to choose. The biological it is true that biological characteristics affect children's dispositions and temperaments. There may even be some biological genetic tendencies which make up part of the natural man that must be overcome throughout life. Finally, children to some degree do select, modify, and even construct their own environments according to their tendencies. For example, a sociable child is going to seek interaction with peers, whereas a shy child is going to avoid social gatherings. As parents, we must recognize these traits in our children and realize that variety in children may require a variety of responses from us as parents. In fact, Brigham Young encouraged parents to study their children's dispositions and temperaments and deal with them accordingly. In other words, in parenting, one size does not fit all. So with our correct map in mind, the proclamation, we need to realize that good families, even great families, are off track 90% of the time. The key is to have a sense of destination, to know what the track looks like, and to keep coming back to it again and again. That's what great families do. They know where they want to go, and they know what the track looks like, and then when they're off course 90% of the time, they know, they have courage to keep coming back. It's like the flight of an airplane. Before a plane takes off, you can see our little airplane up here, hopefully. The airplane has a flight plan.